Dr. Loveness Yanilankata. Dr. Nkata, she's from the University of Zambia. She's a clinical epidemiologist. She's also a physiotherapist. And in addition to that, she's a well-renowned researcher, established academician. She's also an editor and peer reviewer for a number of journals. I'm your host today, Patricia Mukwato from the University of Zambia, School of Nursing Sciences. And my co-host is Dr. Vistolina Nuuyoma. Hope she's in. She's going to co-host this webinar with me. Dr. Nuuyoma, she's from University of Namibia, School of Nursing and Public Health. And she's a senior lecturer there in AFREhealth. For those coming from Namibia, she's actually the country representative for Namibia. Today, she's going to be my co-host. Not to take much of your time, we have just 1 hour on this webinar. So may I now invite Professor Tawanda Mushiri to go ahead. You have about 30 minutes since we started a bit late. After that, Dr. Nkata will add 1 or 2 points just in less than 5 minutes so that we allow 10 to 15 minutes for questions. You are welcome, and over to you. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Professor and Chair, Professor Patricia Katowa-Mukwato. I really appreciate and thank you so much for the time. Like what the chair has said, my name is Tawanda Mushiri. I'm an associate professor of artificial intelligence and biomedical engineering in the Faculty of Medicine and Health Sciences at the University of Zimbabwe. Nice to be here on the AFREhealth 2023, where I'm going to talk about transforming your research into a publication. So many of us are writing papers, many of us are doctors, PhD holders, some of them are tenured, some are not yet tenured. Some people are always asked to write papers for tenure, or you are always asked to write papers to be a professor, associate professor, or you can actually write a paper trying to notify the public about what you are researching on. So today I'm going to discuss a little bit about that. How can you discuss, or how can you make your research, your project, your thesis, your dissertation into a publication? So that's my main discussion. So my layout of presentation as follows: the introduction, book publication, journal publication, patent publication, conference publication, plagiarism, but mostly I will focus much on the book and the journal. As for this conference, then I'm now talking about the introduction. A well-written scientific paper explains the scientist's motivation for doing an experiment, the experiment or design and execution, and the meaning of the results. That's very key. When you are writing a paper, you are writing a story. You want people to follow. What have you discussed? What have you done? Which experiments have you done? Someone in the field may quickly understand that this basically means the researcher has done 1, 2, 3, 4. So the scientific papers, they are always called scientific papers in the sense that there is science in it. All of us, I think, are in the Faculty of Medicine, or we are doing health-related issues, all of us here. So the scientific papers should be written in a style that is exceedingly clear and concise. Someone should follow, should understand. Their purpose is to inform an audience of other scientists about an important issue and to document the particular approach they used to investigate that issue. So that's very critical. That's very necessary. So I will start with the book. When you want to write a book, where do you start from? What have you done? What information do you want to transfer? What excited you? What's your interest? What's your research area? Then you have to see who is going to love this research. If I write my book with respect to artificial intelligence in dysmenorrhea, how can I focus on dysmenorrhea with respect to AI? How can I try to reduce this dysmenorrhea using artificial intelligence? So what can excite the public? People are already knowing that you can use ibuprofen, you can all use 1, 2, 3, 4 types of drugs to lessen or to reduce dysmenorrhea. But at the end of the day, the question is, what can excite the public? If they hear about something innovation, they will really read the research, because the book is more about marketing. Who can read the book? The areas of interest are quite necessary. Each and every one of us has got a niche area, has got one place. Someone might be very good in midwifery, someone might be very good in baby care, someone might be very good in obstetrics or oncology or pediatrics. So at the end of the day, we have quite different interests, but you focus with your interests. Someone might say, I want to talk about an area of cardiology. So at the end of the day, each and every one of us has got his or her area of research. And if you write that research and put it in a book, people will really be fascinated. The audience, the market, the researchers who are already in the market, you have to read other books. You don't have to write as if there are no books in the area. I have read about the textbook by so many people. I've read a book by this author, and this author was talking about 1, 2, 3, 4. I think what was missing from that book is this. This is where you are already going to put references into your book. If you are also writing a book that targets students, which kind of students? For myself, I'm into AI in medicine. What can excite the students who are doing medicine, who are doing nursing, who are doing biomedical engineering, so that if they read the book of AI in medicine, what's the future of the health sector in terms of 2030, using the digital ecosystem, artificial intelligence ruling the world? What can excite the students? What can make the book so much loved by the people in America, by the people in Europe, by the people in Africa? So at the end of the day, you really need to have that one. If you are writing a book for practitioners, you know that these people, they know exactly what they want. And sometimes you might also be involved in some of the work. So you should be writing like a manual or a handbook that they can refer. So that one is very important. If you are writing something for pharmacists, you have to make sure that the drugs that you are talking about and how to use them, it's systematic, and you have quite inquired on a lot of them, so that you are not off topic, or you are going to write something that they will say, but this one is no longer necessary. Why is he saying this? This is 2023. He's still talking about this one. So that one will not be very good. Lecturers, are you also focusing on lecturers? And if you are writing a book for lecturers, how best can you target that the lecturers will love the book and will use that book for creation of notes to the students? So we have discussed about that. How can we get started? Can we start writing a book? Is any one of us going to write a book? If you are writing a book in the next week, in the next month, in the next year, in the next 2 years, in the next 3 years, think of a title. What does each and every, if you are writing a book, you need to have chapter titles, the list, the outlines. Chapter 1 is going to talk about introduction of artificial intelligence. Chapter 2 is going to talk about obstetrics and gynecology in the health sector using AI. Chapter 3 is going to talk about linkage of chapters. Then you also talk about the subsections that you have to work concurrently on all chapters. So each chapter, like you start with chapter 1 is a bit easier, then chapter 2 on a more detailed analysis. Then from chapter 2, it's actually going to be a more challenging one. Then chapter 3 is going to be more challenging than chapter 2, but you have addressed some things from chapter 1, chapter 2, so that the people who follow the book can actually know and understand that chapter 1 is easier, chapter 2 more difficult chapter, but all the concepts are being fed from chapter 1, chapter 2 feeding into chapter 3, so that the topics are not like far much aligned. This one is talking about this one, so that the author will be confused. So at the end of the day, you really need to make sure that you make all the things aligned and follow each other. Work concurrently on all chapters. Funnel approach, that's you create a focus. So you start like this, then it's more like a funnel. So once you have that one, it's going to be very useful. Choice of publisher. So you are going to see that the moment you write books, you will focus much on maybe one kind of publisher, unless you have like PhD students. Some PhD students will say, maybe say, I'm used to Springer. So when we write our book, let's focus on Springer. Or say, I'm used to Elsevier. So once we are writing our book, can we focus on Elsevier or Taylor and Francis? For me, I'm used to Elsevier. I think I've written 3 or more books related to Elsevier. So once you are writing Elsevier, you may end up knowing some of the editors. You may also know exactly what they expect. And if they send you a form to fill in before you start the book, you really know exactly what they want. And when you are preparing how to start, you really know and understand how to go about it. Writing progress. Use student network to conduct publisher. It's very important, right? For those who supervise masters and PhDs, it's easier. Undergraduates, of course, you can actually have some sharp students and also publish from that one. Send title, proposal, and chapter list. So first thing is to send that chapter title that you have, as well as the book proposal name. Sometimes they can actually say, suggest 3 or 4 titles. Then they pick the best, and out of those, the best that they choose, they can also add or subtract some wording to make it more marketable, because you work with the editors. Those people, they really know what the market wants, and your book should actually fit into the system. Reviews, feedback, experts. So you are going to get some reviews, and sometimes they might actually be very challenging. You can actually get them and even sleep with shoes. It might be very difficult for you to read those review comments. Sometimes you may end up just giving up, but at the end of the day, don't give up. Once you get reviews, that's when the work starts, and you work on that one and you submit. So to tell you the truth, the reviews, sometimes they are very thorough. It depends with the professor or a doctor who is going to review. He might be having a lot of experience in the area, and he will review it very seriously, so that at the end of the day, you may end up saying, this is quite detailed, and I think I might stop here. So there's no need for you to stop. You have to follow exactly what the comments were. Commitment contract, you need to create that. Work concurrently on chapters. It's actually very important. So this is my sample book that I have written, and it has been published this year. Healthcare Systems Design of Intelligent Testing Centers, latest technology to the battle pandemic such as the COVID-19. I published this one with the academic press, and it's under Elsevier. Then journal paper writing, I'm now focusing on the journal. A well-written scientific paper explains scientists' motivation for doing an experiment, the experimental design and execution, and the meaning of the research. So we are now on a journal paper, the scientific paper. So those are most standard that people write, and they have their own rankings. So when you are writing these papers, when you are writing the scientific papers, you have to choose that one that is quite detailed, quite good for you. And sometimes you may start with those with some indices which are quite low, 0.5, 0.8. It's good to penetrate slowly rather than starting with the one with 5, 6. They will simply reject your work, and you get motivated, you will never start. Scientific papers are written in a style that is exceedingly clear and concise. Their purpose is to inform an audience of other scientists about an important issue and to document the particular approach they use to investigate that issue. Please do not think that good English is not critical in science writing. In fact, scientists try to be so concise, and their English should be better than that of workers in other disciplines. So if English is not your first language, then proofreading by a native speaker might be helpful. So this one is quite useful, quite necessary. Make sure you focus on your English so that you won't have problems as you do your work. Then if you have read scientific papers that you will have noticed that a standard format is frequently used. This format allows a researcher to present information clearly and concisely. So please make sure that once you are talking about all the researches that you are doing. Make sure that for Springer, they have their standard. IEEE, they have their standard. Elsevier, they have their standards. And other journals, each and every journal, MDPI, all those things, they have their standards. So you can maintain or master one standard so that you will not have problems, or you can actually have a variety or a range of how to write. That would be very good. So the general organization of any paper, general in the world, is to talk about the abstract, normally 300 words or below or something closer to that, depending with journal, or it ranges from journal to journal. Introduction, you have to tell the people what you want to tell them. The methods that you are going to use, are you going to use quantitative, qualitative approach? What are the kind of softwares? For us in artificial intelligence, we normally focus more on that, the softwares that we have used, the algorithm that we created, the results and discussion that we get. What have you got after getting the data? Have you put that data and what have you got actually? Then you also need to discuss. Then you also conclude, but don't forget that the key issue behind any research is to state what has been done before. What is the literature? What has been done before? So that will guide you a lot. This author was saying this, or this et al. Were saying this. My research is going to focus on this. So that was the research is like a relay. You research something, you put it on the market. Then once you put it on the market, people will follow that. Then, actually, like for me, my PhD topic, I saw it from another thesis that was put online by someone from Sweden. And I said, this person is talking about the artificial intelligence systems. Then I actually he actually recommended a certain way of doing this. Then I actually pick it from there. I quickly registered with the University of Johannesburg and I started my PhD. That's how I started my PhD, from reading papers and the research gap that was there. So those papers are quite necessary and important. Then, yes, we also need to talk about the scientific paper, the discussion. You should interpret your results in light of other published results. That's critical. Relate your discussion back to the objectives and questions you raised. So what were your objectives? Have you answered them? It's critical. Limit your conclusion to those that your data can actually support. So it's very important. Just conclude from what you got. Don't assume, because someone might actually be in the lab doing that research and can actually get much better. So you can actually say, my limitations are this one, and I have not done this. When you talk about publication, it's being honest, being open, being straightforward. You say exactly what you have done, which is very critical in academics. You can then proceed to speculate on why this occurred and whether you expected this to occur based on other workers' findings. Suggest future directions for research, new methods, explanations for deviations from previously published results. It's very important. How to cite sources in the discussion section. It is important to cite sources in the discussion section of your paper as evidence of the claims you are making. There are ways of citing sources in the text so that the reader can find the full reference in the literature cited section at the end of the paper. Yet the flow of the reading is not badly interpreted. Make sure you give a full citation in the literature cited section, references for all sources mentioned in the text, which is quite in a conference. You can actually talk about a conference. So for conference as well, they can actually talk about some work related. Then type of talk, it's actually important for you when you are presenting. You really need to master and know what kind of information or what kind of the people are there. So this one, organization, similar to a good paper, golden rule, tell them what you have told them and tell them what you have told them. Each slide takes 1 to, so those things are critical for someone who is in a conference, and it's very fine. Preparing slides, you also need to take your time, see what others are doing. It's very critical for you. So this is very important. Tips for delivery, you also need to know, make eye contact whenever you are presenting for audience. You focus on what exactly.
I'm screenshotting the presentation. I mean, at AFREhealth.
That one.
So, but it's the first.
Hello, can we please mute? Thank you.
Okay, so that's basically, so when you are presenting at a conference, don't be afraid to surprise us. It's very important that I have done this. This has not been there. And from what I'm presenting, this is critical. Handling questions, you also need to know how to answer questions. Don't be rude. Also be in a mood to learn whenever you are presenting in a conference and it's necessary. So those are some plagiarism also. You don't need to copy and paste. You need to know exactly what you have done and to what you can actually focus on with respect to your work. Then when we talk about referencing, download relevant journal materials, latest material on subject matter, chapter specific reference is also very important. Your contribution, is your contribution going to be on the internet? Is it something that can be on global? So that's very important for you. If I talk about this, to what extent has it been said? If I talk about this, is it worthy to be a journal? Is it worthy to be a book? Is it worthy to be a patent? Is it worthy to be a copyright? So all those things, you are the one who suggests where to put it. What's new? Are you coming up with a wearable device that can actually detect cancer? Maybe when someone is actually wearing it, you don't even need to do a mammogram. Can you come up with an innovation way of identifying? So those things are very critical. You don't need to write a paper that people know about. That's not necessary. You are writing something that's quite useful, something that people will take time to read, because people are busy reading research papers so that they find innovations. And like I said, research is like a relay. We give each other, someone is taking it, gives to this person as well, level of quality. Make sure that this is your best. Never ever submit your paper which is not proofread. Never ever submit a paper which is bad. Never ever submit a paper as in a rushing mode. Like, I want to be promoted to professor. I want to be promoted to get permanent or a tenure. So I have to rush doing my papers. This thing is going into the world. This thing is going onto the internet. Take your time, read as much as possible. Sometimes many universities are now advising or teaching us to work as a team to make sure that this one can read your work, this one can read your work, this one is focusing on this. If you merge, then it becomes a very good quality. So make it top quality. Challenges, deadline. You want to submit a paper, they've given you a deadline. My friend, we have sent you the comments, the corrections. Please submit by the 21st of November. Otherwise, we'll reject the paper. So at the end of the day, that's what you need to do. Focus on the deadline. That's what teaches you to be professional. Distractions, work late at night, collect material using the day at work, reduce unnecessary use of cell phone. With the use of WhatsApp, it's very important for social purposes, but at the end of the day, some are no longer focusing on what they are doing. They are busy, almost doing a lot of groups and everything. They are not writing research. They are not focusing. They are not teaching us what they have learned. We need to learn from you, ladies and gentlemen. So please maximize your work, maximize your ability. You are intelligent. Take your time, sit down, collaborate, and make sure that you work very hard to publish your work so that we see what you are doing. So if you write your work, you are not going to die. People will read your work. They will know that at one point there was Tawanda Mshiri. If you share, you will always gain. That's very important. So these are some of the references that I used, and these are my publications and my Google Scholar, my H index, and my I-10 index. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you so much. We still have time. So what I will do, I'll allow Dr. Nkata to add on a few thoughts to this presentation, and within 5 minutes, so that we can have a good amount of time for us to ask questions. Dr. Nkata, over to you.
Thank you so much, Prof. Mukwato and Prof. Tawanda. Thank you so much for the wonderful presentation. I'll just try to add on the publication ethics. As we are publishing, there are ethics that we need to be aware about. and take into consideration whenever we are doing a publication, be it a manuscript or a book publication. So as authors, it's important that we know what rights we have. So whether you're doing a book publication or a manuscript publication, for the publication ethics, you should know that you have the right to make copies for your own personal use. Whether it's a manuscript or it's a book, you have a right to make copies for your own personal use. You also have a right to post preprints versions on the internet, and that helps you to capture a wider audience even before your publication is complete or the publication has undergone the review process. It helps you to market your work. And nowadays, most of the journals have gone the preprint way. So whenever you submit for publication, they will request you, do you want to generate a preprint? That is good for you. And it is your right as a publisher to have a preprint version, the one which hasn't been peer reviewed. You can share and market your work on the internet using the preprint versions. Then it is also your right to present articles at a meeting or a conference. You have published in a journal, you have published a book. Whenever you're attending scientific meetings, you're attending conferences, you should be able to present the work that you have published so that, again, you meet a wider audience. It is also your right as a publisher to extend the article. If the articles or your books, if you did a publication, a manuscript publication, it is your right to extend that article into a book length format. No one is going to penalize you for that. And as long as you are able to acknowledge the first publishing house where you published the manuscript. It is also your right as a publisher you have published in the past, but again, ensure that you are always acknowledging the original publications, the original journal where you published your first article. So when we look at publication ethics, we should consider again the issue of plagiarism. This is because plagiarism on its own has a lot of consequences, and we do not want, by the end of the day, as publishers or writers, to have our reputation hate or to have the scientific community ridiculed. So plagiarism just simply means presenting the work of others as your own. So most of the time when we do that, it is very unethical. And for us in the academic arena, it causes injury on our academic performance, and we may have academic charges. So for ethics, we should never go the plagiarism way. So that's why it's very important when you are citing other people's work, you just make acknowledgement through citations and ensure that the work that you have presented, you have done your citations in text, you have recognized them even in the reference list. So I think I have clocked 5 minutes, Prof. Mukwato.
You have 1 more minute.
I have one more minute.
Round up your thoughts. Yes, please.
Okay, so in 1 minute, that's what I needed to present on ethics, and I hope that has been helpful in addition to what Professor Tawanda has presented already. Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you so much, Professor Tawanda and Dr. Nkata. For the question time, may I invite my co-presenter, Vistolina Nuuyoma, to take up the task. Thank you.
Thank you, Patricia. And thank you, Prof. Tawanda, and Dr. Nkata for giving us tips on how we can write or publish books, conference paper and scientific paper, and also tips on publication ethics. Thank you very much. The floor is now open to the colleagues to come in with the questions. If there are questions, you may raise your hand or you can write your question in the chat and we give you opportunity to say something or to ask your question. Comments are also welcomed. Thank you. Any questions, comments to the two presenters?
There are hands up.
Okay, I see there are hands from, let us start with the Vistolina. You may unmute. Thank you.
Good afternoon. Am I audible?
Afternoon, yes, go ahead. We can hear you.
All right. Thank you so much for what has been shared so far. Those were great presentations from the professors. I'm Vistolina and I'm from Zambia. I'm a biomedical scientist, and I must say that I'm also an upcoming researcher. I've got, I think, two questions. One which may be really like a challenge that we may be facing, and which is making us not really put so much into research. I think I may start with that. And this one is about the publishers. Most of the publishers require you as a researcher, after you have done your work, to pay a certain fee so that your work can be published. What is your advice, and which way can we take so that as young researchers who are coming up can find a way of publishing our work? Then the second concern, or rather question, is on the journals that have really mushroomed. I've noticed from my little research that there are a lot of predatory journals. How do you get to find out, like, the journal which is more legit and more inclined to the medical field and is more recognized? Yeah, just those two questions. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. I think we can take 3 more questions. Then we give the presenter a chance to answer them all. Let's move to Singano. Singano, the floor is yours to ask your question.
Okay, thank you so much. My question is that we've seen a proliferation of large language models recently. So my question is, how do we incorporate that into our research? Because I've seen a lot of students, researchers that have been using large language models such as ChatGPT, BARD, and etc. And also when we're writing for publication, I've seen that other journals, they put maybe specifications, but sometimes they're not always clear. So how do we go about on the use of large language models in our research? Thank you.
Thank you. Let's hear the question from Wisha.
Thank you
The
so
floor
much.
is yours.
Thank you so much. Thank you to the Prof and Doc. I have 3 questions. The first one is on the book chapter. You mentioned that there has to be a logical flow of from the chapter to chapter. So then, how do you handle it in terms of there are some journals that I've been receiving some emails for one of my research publications where they asked me to add a chapter to a book. So is it a good idea to go in that way, to add a chapter to a book, and how do I basically handle that process? Because I'll basically not know whether there's a logical flow from chapter to chapter. So what's your advice on some of these publishers who ask you to maybe add a chapter for to a book? Then the other question is, you talked about conference presentations. So when you talk about a conference presentation, does it also count in the same way as the publication? because like some of our universities require us to make a publication for you to graduate, for you to get your PhD. So will that also count the same way? Will a conference publication count the same way as a journal publication will count? Will they weigh the same? Basically, then is it also okay to, if I'm not yet done with my research, I have some data, like some good amount of data, maybe for, let's say, one of my objectives, is it a good idea for me to also publish that data before, maybe whether in a journal or present it at a conference before the full research is complete? I think for now, I'll leave it there. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Let us take the last question from Abigail. Okay. Abigail, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. I'm Professor Agbo Hadiza Abigail from Nigeria, just Nigeria. I want to thank the presenters and all the moderators. One, I have some comment and a question. I'll start with a comment. I want to just add my voice to bringing out the importance of networking. And when we attend conferences, it's very important that we network, because the world now is going out of just doing your research within your domain. So when you go out, when you network, when you go out for conferences, you network and you can share research ideas with people in other African countries or other parts of the world. And it gives a lot of credibility to the work. And apart from giving credibility, it brings the visibility of assessing grants. Because these days, when you're assessing grants and you come from multi-centers and multidiscipline, it gives you an edge into making success of the grant. Then there's something else I want to say for the starters. In research, you can never say you know it all. But for the starters, when you are writing research, you may be general at times. Oh, you want this idea, you love it, and you write a book. But as you grow in the profession, it's very good to be specific. What are your areas? So that you be known to be more concentrated in a specific, maybe if I'm in medicine, what is my subspecialty? So it's very important that we grow from general to specific. Then about the question, almost similar to what one of the participants asked. Most of times, if I open my email, I get information, or I get messages that they want me to contribute to a chapter. And I get worried. If I ask questions, they want, because I want to consider the legal and the ethical issues. There was one I asked, am I going to be paid? So I want the presenters to help me. Am I going to be paid? And they never replied. So what is the procedure? Do you just accept because you want your name to be indexed in that book? So thank you very much. I'm done. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Abigail. We now give the floor back to Prof. Tawanda and Dr. Nkata to answer to the questions that are posted by the participants. Thank you. The floor is yours.
Oh, okay, thank you. I will start. Dr. Nkata will follow. Thank you so much. The first question was talking about fees to be published or to be paid before a paper is published. So I think all those papers, sometimes they are the same, sometimes it differs from publisher to publisher. But when we talk about journals, when we talk about book writing, normally some publishers don't require fees. So you can actually write without paying anything. So normally at our university, we normally choose the publications where you don't need to pay anything. So if you write books, for example, with Elsevier, you just publish for free, but you have to work very hard because they review and they review and they review like 3 years for you to get accepted a book to be through. But you don't pay anything. But after 6 months, you start to get royalty. Then they actually pay you, not you paying. So it depends on stability of funding do you have. If you, some journals like MDPI, they can even require something like $6,000 for paper to be published. That's okay. If you have the money, I think it's okay. But most likely at our university, they recommend we publish where we don't need to pay anything. So once we have such publishers, I think let's focus on those that do not need us to pay anything. Because if you don't have money and you need maybe promotion or you need something, why can you go for those that can pay? Unless if you have money, that will be good. It depends from nation to nation, but sometimes I would recommend people to focus on journals that you don't pay, because you're actually sharing knowledge. If you share and you don't pay and people get a lot of information from you, it will be quite good. They are most of the journals that I know you don't need to pay, but some I know they require you to pay. And some might be actually high up with the chief editors who are Sir Jones and all that kind of stuff. Then you also have to pay in that case. So it depends which paper are you targeting and what do you prioritize. And is the university targeting that journal? But if the university targets that one that you pay, you have no option but to pay. That's my first answer for the first question. The second question was asking about journal, which is more recognized. How do you know that this journal is more recognized? So there are some journals that we call Scopus Index, the journals that you can actually check on the index. If you see them, you know this one is a good paper. So it depends actually with the how can you talk about a journal? There's what we call impact factor. So the impact factor is actually about the experience that you have in writing a paper. So the ones that with the low impact factor, you can actually say they're actually on the penetration stage. You can actually enter them if you write well. But now as the impact factor increases, it also, and also in terms of payment, those journals with a higher impact factor, some of them you may need to pay. I remember I was reading an article for Elsevier, I think one journal of medicine, they were charging around $5,000 for a paper. And people were competing to publish in that, like MIT, Harvard, and all that kind of stuff. So at the end of the day, that may also happen. It depends. My second response is for Singano Nathan, who was talking about large language models and ChatGPT. So yes, definitely our students are looking into that, and there's a lot of stuff that has been done. A student or someone can just quickly download a paper or some research that has been done elsewhere and quickly paraphrase and come up with some work that actually that can actually say, I have downloaded and paraphrase, and the plagiarism is less than 10%. Those things are possible and they are there. It just means we now need to keep an eye open, and we also need to read around. If professors and doctors, we are all serious and we follow exactly what our students are doing, we can actually see that this thing has been done somewhere at MIT. This thing has actually been done at the University of Zambia. This thing, so at the end of the day, some might not be published, but at the end of the day, if we are all like gurus in the area, we can actually understand that this thing has been done somewhere. This thing is already happening in some way. If we have some collaborations of research, and those things can actually help. But at the end of the day, the ChatGPT is on us, and all those things, they really need to think us in an innovation way so that we eliminate the copying and pasting, so that we don't disadvantage people. Those who worked long back, they put all their effort. Now that these students can just do some work in 2 weeks, then they are done. They are busy paraphrasing what has been there. So we have ChatGPT, we have large language models, we have everything of artificial intelligence. But how can we beat that one? It needs us to read, it needs us to rethink, it needs us to see things and what has been done elsewhere. So that's my answer on that one. Then the other one is to do with Ngwisha. Ngwisha was talking about the book chapter as well as flow and logical aspect. So when we talk about the book chapter flow, I was saying maybe you are writing a book and that book is only you who is writing that book. You need to put your chapters in a logical manner or in an orderly manner. It actually has to flow. If you are talking about, let's say, large language models, maybe another chapter is now going to focus on natural language processing, maybe another chapter now talking about machine learning. It depends on which book are you writing, but there are some books like what are done by IGI Global. They can just ask you to write a book chapter. So you are just writing a book chapter, you are not writing a book, and they give you a topic or something related, or they say suggest a topic, so that like 15 authors are going to write in one book. So it depends with, then you have to be asked to put, then they will rearrange the topics, the publisher, so that they fit exactly what they want. Then another question was to do with conference paper as well as journal paper. Are they the same? Definitely they are not. Where I did my PhD, University of Johannesburg in South Africa, a conference paper was weighing 0.5 and a journal paper was weighing 1. So if you are writing a conference paper, you really need to know that it has got low weight. So it depends. And also it's not all conference papers that they take, they have to take. But some conference paper, they can simply say after you are done with the presentation, they take those papers, they upgrade them again, then they put them as journals or book chapters. It depends. IEEE, they actually do that. Elsevier, they also do that. You can actually go for a conference, you present many papers, then they ask you now to develop that conference paper into a journal. Then you have to work again for 2 to 3 months. And it actually depends. So it's not going definitely to be like as soon as you publish a conference paper, you are equal to someone with a journal. Definitely to me, it's not supposed to be like that. It depends with institution to institution and publishers. But basically, this is what I also thought. Then according to Agbo, I was also talking about conference networking. So it's very important to go to conferences, and networking is very important. You can actually get collaborations there. Thank you so much, Agbo, for that from Nigeria. It's very important for us to network, and those conferences are really necessary for us to attend. But as we are attending, we are creating collaboration, we are creating networks, we are learning one another, because academics, we all live with that aspect of learning, which is actually quite good for us. I think these are my answers for now. Thank you so much. I can give the floor to others to answer. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Prof, for the response that you have given. Just to add a voice on a few things, like money for publication. There are 2 types of journals. So you find there are those journals that have open access and the ones which do not have open access. So most of the times, the ones that have open access, they are the ones that will require you to make a payment. And the ones which do not have open access, most of the times you are not going to make payment. But when the reader wants to access the material in that journal, they are the ones who are going to make some payment to the journal in order for them to access that article. So for open access, definitely when you make the payments that they ask you to make, it means everybody can have access to your research article. It can be highly cited. If the scientific presentation that you have made is of interest, you can capture a wider audience compared to an article which you have published in a journal which has no open access, because whenever somebody wants to access that article, so they will have to make payments to the journals. And most of the time for us, especially us in the sub-Saharan region, we do not have the funding to that. Most of the materials that we access are from open access, so we go that route. And then on the other point was on the more recognized journals. I thought I should just add a point to say when a journal has an index impact factor of 5, it definitely tells you that it is a good journal. So if you want to do your publication, you would definitely want to go in a journal which has a high impact factor, because you know that the material or the scientific sharing that you are going to publish about has a wider audience. And then on the book chapters, the voice I wanted to add was most of the time when they request you from the internet or the publishing house, they have themes to that book. So they might be talking about chronic pain. So they want you to add a chapter in relation to chronic pain. So you might not have the same chapter flowing, but maybe here they will talk about using electrotherapy. Another one will talk about how we are going to use this pharmacological product in managing chronic pain, but the whole theme will be one theme, and then the chapters will be different, but they are all talking about chronic pain management. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Dr. Nkata. There's 2 questions from the chat that I want our presenter to address. What should we consider when using AL for scientific writing? What should we consider when using AL for scientific writing? That is a question. And the second one, what is the importance of considering preprint? Kindly shed more light on that. So maybe we can address the 2 questions, and then we come back to the participants. Maybe the last one. The last
Vistolina, there are also
Yes?
other questions from the chat. Maybe we
Oh,
can add
I thought
them.
I think the question of a conference, the paper, that one is addressed.
Okay.
There's one on the how do you consider the niche, specific niche area? Do you have to stick to one or various or a number? That is also one question. And the other one, can a study that was carried out 2 years back, let us say in 2019, can it still be published? I can go back to see if there are more that I left out, but for now, our presenters can attend to those ones. Thank you.
Okay.
Okay, sorry, Prof. What was the question on the preprints? I missed that one.
It is saying, what is the importance of considering preprint? The importance of considering preprint. That is the question.
Okay, thank you.
You can start, Dr. Nkata, no problem.
Okay, for AI, I think Prof is a guru in that will be able to attend to that, and maybe I can take the question on preprints. So the importance is simply marketing your work before it is published. So when you share a preprint, so on your social network profiles, like even on Facebook, WhatsApp, Twitter, it allows you to reach your audience. So they have a feel already of what is expected from the publication that is under review. So it is a marketing strategy that the journals are coming up with to help you, to help your work visible. So it is a good thing to take into consideration and just go with it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much, Dr. Nkata. I'll start with the question of niche area. So I think niche area, you have to say what's your area or how strong are you in the area that is being made advertised. It's like a book chapter. They say they want to write on 1, 2, 3, 4. Then if they focus on that as their niche area, it depends. Are you good in that? Then you follow. But you can also say you have your own area that you want to advertise or you want to start about it. You have to start it as well. Then you can write. I think that's what I can say about that. Then there's another question for a work that has been done in 2019. Do you want to publish it now? It depends, because now as a person who will be researching, you can actually see that I published this thing or I did this research in 2019 or 2018, but it has not yet been overtaken by events. I can still publish it. But if you feel that I think it has been overtaken by events, you may not publish it. It depends or you may actually say, what can I add now that maybe after the COVID-19 era, things have changed. So you can actually change that and you put it more into a better area. Then there's a question by Sekinati. She was asking about, can you present one paper at a conference twice? So it depends, because when you present a paper on a conference, the paper will be online and the paper is published. So if you publish it like now in a conference like at Elsevier, then you want to publish the same work again for Springer, definitely it will show a high plagiarism or 100%. So definitely it's not going to be accepted or it's not going to work. So definitely a paper cannot be published twice unless you are taking the recommendation that you ended in another paper, you develop another paper, that would be good. So you can actually cite Mushiri 2019, Mushiri 2020, Mushiri 2021. So your papers will actually be following each other, depending with exactly what you are talking about, but not copy as it is full paper from title to the last full stop on the references on the paper. You send that same paper to 2 conferences. Definitely for me, it's not acceptable and it's not good actually, because what do you want to prove? Already you have informed the world what you have done. You can't publish twice. Then there was another question again, I think it's also Sakinati, talking about, can an author publish alone? Yes, it's possible. You can publish alone. You also have some papers that have been written by one person. I also have some papers that I wrote alone. It's okay. But now with this technology and also sharing of knowledge, I think it's also good to work as a team. Maybe you might be doing a research, quite a number of you. It will be very good to do together. And if you are doing the master's or PhD student, work with together. And also it depends with the nature of the work. If the student is actually leading the work, the student has to be the main author. Definitely some universities, they consider that the main author might get 4 points, the second author might get 2 points, third author might get 1 point, fourth author might get 0.5, fifth author might not get a point. So all those things are also possible and are necessary. When we do research, we need to know who is who goes to the first, who goes to the second. That's professionalism in academics. I think I've said a lot. The other question was on AI. What is it? What was it exactly? Vistolina.
It is saying, what should we consider when using AL for scientific writing?
AI.
What should we consider? Yes, AL.
What should we consider?
I think that's abbreviation for artificial intelligence, or I don't know. It's saying okay. AL.
AL. AL.
Yeah, maybe the person who posed the question can maybe clarify, because I was assuming it means artificial intelligence, but then it's AL.
Yeah.
Maybe the person can come in and clarify.
It's AI. Georgina, you by saying
but now it's saying.
Okay. So
AL.
when we talk about AI, or it's saying, what should you consider when, Vistolina?
When using AL for scientific writing.
Okay. Scientific
which
writing.
I'm assuming it's supposed to be artificial intelligence.
So when you are writing in a scientific writing on artificial intelligence, definitely you can talk about artificial intelligence, but now here we are focusing, like me, I do AI mostly in the medicine sector. So what I do basically is more into the applications. We talk about breast cancer, then we now talk about machine learning. How can we, so the structure of the paper or the format of the research should actually follow the same introduction, background, objectives, aim, problem statement, literature survey, materials and methodology, results and discussion, as well as lastly, recommendations and conclusion. So it depends exactly what are you trying to address. Remember, every paper is supposed to be the same. It has to be a message that people can take home to. So how have you used your AI and to solve what? Have you solved that? So I think that's how best I can talk about that, because AI mostly it's a tool that can be used to solve problems. Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Back to you, Patricia.
Thank you, Vistolina. I'll just allow one person to ask a question. The hand has been up, Leonard. Then we wind up.
Oh, thank you very much. I would like to know if journals have got any ethics from the submission of a manuscript to publication, because you will see that some manuscripts stay in review stage for up to 4 years, and I have a problem with that.
Oh, okay. No, thank you so much, Mr. Leonard. It depends on
you.
what, yeah, it depends with what kind of journal is it. Is it a journal with a high impact factor, or is it to do with that all editors are not organized, that they can take a paper for 4 years, 5 years, not being published? That now goes back to the question that was raised, the work of 2019, can it still be published? Because we also move with time. Are we happy to maintain your work not published for 4 years, for 5 years? When it comes on board, is it still relevant? So those are some of the questions that we can actually say. And I think it's also good that I can withdraw my paper. Unfortunately, you write to them. Unfortunately, I've seen that you are reviewing my paper for 4 years now. I don't think you have to wait for 4 years. I think if a year passes and you have not seen any response about your paper, it's better that you go back to the people and you talk to the chief editor that I think I've seen that my paper is stuck in the review stage, and I think I may withdraw my paper. Thank you so much. It will be very important that you withdraw your paper, you take your time, you do other researches so that you are not wasted your time. I think that's how I answer that question. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, dear colleagues. We are now 7 minutes beyond time. May I say thank you so much to Professor Mushiri and Dr. Nuuyoma, and to all of you, the participants, for coming through. I liked the question and answer session. I think it was so enriching. And we are looking forward to another webinar. We are going to post, let us be active on our page. I think some of us have learned 1 or 2 things from. We have 2 more in the series. We'll advise when writing project proposals. I think a lot of students are interested in that. And then after that, writing grant proposals for funding. And we are still looking for experienced people with expertise who can take us through. We received a few names, but we are still looking for a few more people that can help us host or present during those 2 webinars. Be active on the page, invite others. We have seen a number of opportunities so far just on our page. People calling for examiners, people looking for networks. Somebody talked about networking, very important. We are networking on our page and we'll continue to network beyond the page. With that said, may I invite Georgina? Maybe she has 1 or 2. Georgina Yeboah is the executive director for AFREhealth. Maybe she has 1 or 2 comments to make. From me, Patricia, thank you, Southern Africa. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Patricia, and everyone. I think I posted my comments in the chat, my appreciation to the speakers, to you moderators and the participants who have made this session wonderful. I'm thinking that we need to consider even a workshop or a write shop where we can really put in practicals in the publishing, yes, for journals. I think we need to do that so that when people have practical work that they need to submit, we can help them to do that and submit. So let's consider that as a chapter and as an organization. We are very grateful to all of you for that. Thank you. Back to you, Patricia.
Thank you very much. That comment, well appreciated. We are going to consider that practical aspects instead of theoretical, theory only. Thank you. Have a pleasant afternoon, evening, or if there are some who are still in the morning. Thank you. The session is over. Thank you.
Onunja